Hello, ladies. I'm very happy to have you with me and to have you at the festival du Roman Féminin this year, a virtual festival because we couldn't see together in Paris. So maybe that's good because for the first time we have Brenda with us. Yes.
Yeah.
And we can have some writers who are not translated yet, but I hope with this video, it will be soon, okay? So first, I will let you introduce yourself to our French readers. You start when you want. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first, get it out the way. Hello, I am Brenda Jackson, and I write, oh gosh, I'm a romance author, and I write about good-looking men, beautiful women that travels all over the globe. And I happened to be in Paris 2 years ago.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there. You came to see me at my hotel.
Yes.
I love Paris. Haven't been back, but I plan on making another trip there one day. So hello, glad for the invite.
Tracey, go ahead. Would you like
yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Tracey Livesay. I write contemporary romance with featuring interracial couples, and I am so excited to be here, just even writing it in my calendar. The closest I've been to Paris, but I am looking forward to rectifying that. I'm so excited to be here, especially with these lovely ladies, so thank you.
Just so you know, I was very stressed because the time zone sucks. I was so afraid to miss you. I checked the time hour by hour.
Hello, everyone. Bonjour. Je m'appelle Uzma Jalaluddin, and I'm a writer I'm actually in Toronto, Canada, and I know un petit peu de français, pas beaucoup, and my accent is very bad. So I'll switch to English. I've written 2 novels, Aisha at Last, and my second book actually just came out this week. It's Hannah Khan. Thank you. Hannah Khan Carries On, and I write romance novels that are all about being Canadian and Muslim and immigrants from India, which is where my family is from. So yeah, and I'm so happy to be here with this talented panel.
Thank you so much. My first question would be for Uzma and Tracey. You chose to write what you wanted, and that worked well for both of you. Did you have some pressure from publishers to write something else in order to be published?
Uzma, you go.
Okay, sure. You know, my first novel, it's here. It's the Canadian cover is here. I have a Google screen, so you can't really see it. And this is the American cover, and it's beautiful. It's yellow and thing. And as you can see on the cover is a woman in hijab. And I started writing my book. It was published in 2018 in Canada and 2019 in the rest of the world, except for France. I hope it comes to France and is translated. But I started writing it in 2010, which feels like so long ago. And I think the reason why it took me so long to actually try to get it published is because I just didn't see books like my book represented. My first novel is sort of a Muslim version of Pride and Prejudice, which I think is like the original romance novel, one of the original romance novels. And I was really worried because I knew that I wanted to write about Muslim characters, South Asian, Indian characters, but in a very authentic way. No one was going to be portrayed as being a dangerous extremist. I was just going to focus on the love story and just having these 2 brown people fall in love. And it was really hard for me personally to build up the confidence to write the story and to have the confidence to actually try to get it published. And I think it landed at a very I don't know, I was very fortunate in the time, because I think around 2017, 2018, people in publishing and readers were saying, where are the stories about people of color? Where are the stories that are set outside of the mainstream white population? And so when my novel was out for submission, I had a lot of rejections, but when it was eventually taken up by HarperCollins, they said, you know, this is exactly what we're looking for. And they never really, I was very lucky, I know, they never really said, oh no, make this more like this or make this more like that. So I had a really great experience. But again, I think it was timing. I think if I had tried to get it published in 2010, I might have had a really different situation. What about you, Tracey?
Do you know if there are more writers who write Muslim romance now in Canada, at least?
In Canada, well, Canada is a pretty small country with a very fun neighbor, the United States, you know, and we're very close to. But in Canada, I can say that I was probably the first, and I think I'm still the only who's writing an adult. Yes. But I can tell you that around the world, I've heard my novel being used as a comparison, like, oh, I'm going to write a book like Aisha at last. So we're still very few in number, but I can see there's young writers coming up behind me, which makes me really, really happy. You know, in the UK, in the US, in other parts of the world. So, you know, fingers crossed.
So you are, I can say you are a pioneer in the Muslim romance.
Oh, thank you. You know what, I think sometimes, you know, the people who are the first, it's like other people were writing, but maybe they were self-publishing, or maybe, you know, they were writing like fan fiction. And that's oftentimes where you see the beginnings of change happening, and in those kind of like, okay, well, I can't get published by one of the big publishing houses. I'm just going to make space for myself. And that's, I think a lot of writers of color have had to do that over the years. So I probably benefited from other people who've been at this game a lot longer than I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been reading romance for a very long time, since I was 12. And when I started out reading, it was very difficult to find romance novels with Black women specifically as the heroines. And so seeing, you know, people like, you know, Brenda Jackson writing what I love to read, which was Silhouette and Harlequin categories, those were my favorites. So seeing her write those books was very inspirational to me. And I've actually reached out to her a few times before I sought to be published. And she was always very gracious to sort of respond to my emails. So thank you. But for me, it was never an issue that I would write something other than a Black heroine. Why would I write outside of what my, you know, POV is, or what I wanted to see? I mean, I knew that I was just as deserving of love and happily ever after and romance as anyone else. And so the stories I wrote were going to feature women that looked like me. The hero might have changed, and it just happened that you know, my husband is white. And so when I was in my relationship with him and looking for stories that were similar to our story, that became difficult to find because our romance itself was not based on race. That doesn't mean that other people outside of our romance didn't have issues with our race, but like our conflicts or, you know, our sort of inner arcs and journeys or whatever didn't have anything to do with race. And I found that was difficult to find. So when I made the decision to try to pursue this professionally, it was easy. I knew what I was going to write, and I have never had a publisher push back on that particular issue. I've had a little pushback on when in one of my books, Love on My Mind, my hero has Asperger's. I had a little bit of pushback on that, but I kept going because that was very important to me. I would say I had more pushback in the beginning, actually, from readers who would see the cover of my books and expect a certain type of story, or wouldn't be willing to give it a chance because they thought it was going to be one type of story, except, you know, but it's a romance. That's what I write, a romance. I'm not trying to sell you anything else. But I've been fortunate too that no one has ever pushed back on my desire to write Black heroines. So that's been very fortunate.
Okay, thank you so much. What do you think, speaking about diversity, what do you think of the evolution of diversity in the romance industry, as well from publishers and from readers? Brenda, maybe?
Okay, what do I think about diversity?
Mm.
Gosh, I think now, because you know, when I started writing, there was no diversity back in the 90s, you know, and we couldn't even get publishers to even consider our stuff because there was no market for it. And they told you there's no market. If you make your characters white, we would buy it. But and just like the young lady said before me, I'm a Black woman. So why would I write anything other than what I am, you know? And so I push back on that. No, I want to write what I know. And what I knew was a romance between two Black people. So anyway, finally, you know, diversity then became a household word after the fact, because they had to put us somewhere. They had to put us in a spot. And so they got pushed back, but we persisted. We had to prove to them that our books would sell. That was the biggest thing. Our contracts were not even equal to our white counterparts at all. And we knew that, and they explained it to us, and that they would not be, because we were new and they were taking a chance on us. And then boom, everything happened. So I'm looking forward to it. I love diversity in all genres. For the longest, I was the only one that, other than Rochelle Allers for a little while, who wrote Desires. But for years, for the last 10 years, I was the only one who wrote, the only African-American who wrote Desires. Now I'm so glad to see others not only join Desires, but every line at Harlequin and other publishers, they are embracing diversity. And I love it. I really love it. And not just in publishing, but in movies as well. So that's good.
You know, one thing I regret with you, Brenda, is that you never had an award for any of your books, just one for your writing career. That's good, but I hope I would have liked that you had one for one of your books. No.
An award.
An award, Rita Award, Rita.
RWA. Well, and you know what? That became an issue, but it was never an issue for me because I never.
No, I don't think it was for you, but I think me as a reader, I would have loved to see one of your books with Rita Award.
Yeah. And I guess when people ask me, I think twice, maybe once I put in for a reader. Having a reader never was important to me. And the reason it wasn't important to me was because to me, a reader is, I know you're a reader, but a reader is mostly based on authors awarding authors, basically, because they're the one who vote for them. It never mattered to me what other authors thought of my work. What was important to me was what my readers thought of my work. And they put me on the New York Times. They put me on the USA Today. They put me on the Amazon bestseller list. So for another author to say her work isn't out, that never mattered to me. So, and I told a lot of authors that, I said, y'all getting caught up, and I understand it's important to some for the readers and a lot of the other types of awards, but I looked at who was giving me the award. And so if I have to put in for it and then have my peers of other authors then vote on it, and it's so many factors that could play in it, whether you write a good book or not, sometimes is not one of the factors, it didn't matter to me because I got everything else. So
thank you.
yes.
So Tracey, what do you think about the evolution of diversity in the romance industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's about time, frankly. And, you know, we've been reading, and I mean, sort of readers of color have been reading romance for a long time. I mean, we were able to read and look past the fact that we weren't represented in the books and able to enjoy the stories and the premise of a romance, which is, you know, a happily ever after between two people. We were able to do that whether the couple was white, whether they were alien, whether they were shapeshifter. I mean, we came for the story. And so the idea that that could not be returned, that other readers could not enjoy stories featuring diverse characters just seemed ridiculous to me. So I am, like Miss Brenda, I'm happy about it. I love it. And I learned so much when I read a romance that's a culture that's not my own and maybe one that I don't have personal interaction with. I learned so much and it makes me eager to learn more. It's one of the best things I think about our genre is because we know what's involved and we know that our characters are going to get a happily ever after. We're able to go to different places and on journeys and learn different things as we are, you know, getting to that happily ever after. I mean, I think that's why I love our genre so much. I'm biased. I think it's one of the best genres for that very reason. You can teach people and expose them to so many things. And it's not a lesson because, you know, it's just people relating to each other and falling in love and doing the work so that they can remain in love. So like I said, I think it's about time that we've had this diversity. I want to see it grow more. I don't think that we should be in a place where one person has to represent their entire sort of race or religion or experience, because we all are an amalgamation of different things and experiences. So I just wanted to open even more, and so that everybody can be represented, everybody can find what they're looking for, and we can all learn so much more.
Thank you, Tracey.
I love that answer, Tracey, and Ms. Brenda. What you said was really resonated with me too. You know, I'm Indian background, not Black, and I feel like so much work has been done by the Black community to also help other communities as well, because you know there's stories that are coming out of the Muslim diaspora, the Indian Asian diaspora, but the only thing I would add is that I think the lack of that over the years, like Ms. Brenda, it must have been so lonely for you to be like the token, like the one person who was doing this hard work and not getting the recognition for so long, right? Like you're clearly finding readers, you're on the New York Times, and yet you're still the only person for that. It's just ridiculous. And it's nice that it's changing, but I think almost like the trauma of it not having changed for so long, we're still dealing with that, right? I myself, I'm a new writer, but I feel like the reason why it took me so long is because I didn't see that representation of, you know, white was the default in love stories. The only people who got the romantic happily ever afters were white for the most part. And then there were just the people who were blazing the trail, like you, Ms. Brenda, and the lack of that. And it's nice to see this sort of burst of productivity from authors of color and authors of various different backgrounds. But I do wonder what the impact of not having that has been for the past 10 years. You know, my second novel launched a couple days ago. And it was great. We did a virtual launch because what else can you do right now? And it was so great to see like these I had like little teenagers, you know, like I'm a married mother of 2 teenage boys. So I had like teenagers showing up to the launch and like kids in their early 20s. And they were like, this is so great. This is so fun. And I was thinking, what if when I was 20 and I had this opportunity to attend a launch for a book that is a romantic comedy about Muslim characters, like that would have meant so much to me, but it simply wasn't available. I had to grow up, and now in my 40s, I'm the one who is producing this work that's kind of helping others behind us. So I feel like the stories that we tell, they're not just, they're so needed, but they're also filling in this, they're allowing communities of color to dream for the future. Which sounds idealistic, but I think romance is such an optimistic, idealistic genre anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it's the best one too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I think for a long time, people of Black color, Muslim, and other people of diverse people were only for background, except for Brenda, of course. Now they are put above everyone else in the books, so that's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm.
How should the romance writers do to make people's mind change?
I want to believe that true romance readers are true romance readers, and they're going to appreciate a book regardless. And like Tracey said, it shouldn't matter who is the hero and who is the heroine. The main thing is a beautiful love story. And I think as long as we continue to drive that point home, I think it won't matter. And I think a case in point is like Bridgerton. Bridgerton was definitely during the English era. But if you put Duke of Hastings, you made him Black, you made other people, different people all in it. What most people focus on it, they focus on the Duke too, because he was such a good looking guy. But yeah, he's Ray John. Ray John, whatever his last name is, he was such a good looking guy. So yeah, we focus on him too. But I think the love story between him and Daphne was beautiful. The conflict and what they went through for him to really find love. That was the key point for me, and so I think give the people, and that's what I keep telling myself, Brenda, give the people a beautiful love story, because I believe love is colorblind. I've written multicultural romance novels with Delaney, Desert Chic. I've written couples, interracial couples with, the Elliots and, other books I've written for Harlequin, interracial. So I've written it all. I write what I feel, and I have all of that combination in my family. So I watch them, I see them, not just in your family, your friends. I mean, this is a diverse world. I tell people it's no longer the melting pot. When I was growing up, I was told the United States and the world is a melting pot. To me, you melt something, put everything together, and you melt it into the same thing. Now it's a salad bowl. Everybody has a contribution. You may be this season, I may be this spice, you may be lettuce, I may be tomatoes. But in the end, everybody make a beautiful salad. So that's how I look at the world now, as a beautiful salad.
And it's healthy for you too.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so do you want to add something to what Brenda just said? No, that's okay.
Yeah, I think
okay.
That thing's well. Yeah.
Yes, I think it was very, very great. Okay, so let's go to the last question. So Uzma. Okay, Uzma, yes. Tell me about your love for Jane Austen, please.
Oh, for sure. So my first novel, Aisha at Last, is a Muslim retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And, you know, the best thing about Pride and Prejudice is Mr. Darcy, who's the main character. And he, you know, in the original novel, Mr. Darcy is like this stern kind of person who immediately like pisses off the main character of Elizabeth Bennet. And it's a classic, probably one of the original haters to lovers trope, which I love. It's my favorite trope. I love when the two main characters hate each other and then they slowly fall in love over the course of the book. And I thought it would be really funny. And really, it was because I thought it would be funny if I had my main character be like a really obvious Muslim man, like with the long beard and like a kufi and like a long white robe, and he walks around like that, and he's very stern. And then my main female character is Aisha, the main character in Aisha at Last, and she's a spoken word poet. She wears hijab like me. She's very like fiery and outspoken, and just kind of throwing these people in their, you know, in their, they live in Toronto, so they're both second generation immigrants, and throwing them into a city like Toronto and have them deal with all sorts of identity issues. And then it's funny because they have funny family members, and Aisha, you know, her cousin is trying to get married and getting all these like arranged marriage proposals, and Aisha is like, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to fall in love, and she meets Khalid, and then hijinks ensue. So that's really what Aisha at Last is about. And it came out of my love for Jane Austen. Again, it comes back to what we were talking about from before, just the lack of representation. I grew up reading books like, you know, Pride and Prejudice, and, you know, all of those types of classic romances. And what happens is those stories, because you read them when you're so young, they stay with you in your mind. And when I started writing my first book, I didn't even know I was rewriting Pride and Prejudice until I was like 4 or 5 drafts in, and I was like, wait, I think this is Pride and Prejudice. Oh my God, I'm writing a book, rewriting a book that I loved as a kid, which is why we all need to read more diverse books when we're younger, because they get into our hearts. But no, for me, it was really fun to take the storyline of Jane Austen and then just rework it into a Muslim context. And for a lot of readers who had maybe never read a book about Muslim characters or about South Asian characters, they all know the story of Pride and Prejudice. It's a classic. So it was a way for them to feel comfortable too. Like, okay, I'll take a chance on this because I want to see what it looks like in a Muslim circumstance. So I think a lot of people gave me a chance that maybe I wouldn't have had before. And I certainly benefited from it. And, you know, as I said, I hope Aisha at Last comes to France.
Yes, I hope to. The difference between your book and the one from Jane Austen is that we didn't have Mr. Darcy's point of view. Yes. And in yours, we have Khalid's point of view. And yes. I think if we had Darcy's point of view, maybe we should have the same thoughts as Khalid when he met Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's classic romance, right? To have both the male and female point of view. It's very common in romance.
Yes, right. I prefer to have both. Yes. Yes. Okay. So, Tracey, what about your Shades of Love trilogy?
Yes.
You are with us, right?
Yeah, just like, yeah. Anything specific, or you just want me to talk about it, or?
Yes, I would like to talk to you for you to talk about the series. Maybe your inspiration and everything else about it.
Sure. So my Shades of Love series was my first series with Avon. It was my first single title book, and like I said earlier, I grew up, my favorite was the Harlequin, and so I thought that I was going to write Harlequin categories for a very long time before trying single title, and it just so happened that it happened earlier than I anticipated. But Love on My Mind is the story with my hero who has Asperger's. And that came from a couple of places. One, it was similar to what we're talking about, like with Mr. Darcy, or especially about sort of alpha heroes, this idea that they are stern and they don't share their emotions. And even though recently, in romance novels, you get both POVs. Back in the day, especially when I was reading them, like, the Harlequin Presents and Desires, you usually had the female and the hero was acting like a jerk for like most of the book. And then, chapter 10, suddenly you find out he loves her and like all the things he did, all these actions he took, once he explains them, you're like, oh, okay. And so there was this idea that certain heroes, like I said, did not share their emotions, or was cold or unfeeling until the very end. And my thought was, well, what if he didn't share his emotions because he was unable to, or it was difficult for him to? And part of that came from the fact that my oldest son has Asperger's, and he's growing up right now. He's 17. He's just got into college, which we are very excited about. But at the time, I was looking at him and he's just such, I'm biased, but he's just as cute and adorable. And I think he's funny and smart. But, it's hard for him initially to open up to people. And so the thought that he may be denied sort of what his dad and I have because of that difficulty, as a romance person, I'm getting teary. I don't mean to be teary, but as a romance person, it was like, let me explore this. And so that's sort of where that story came from. As any sort of romance author knows, once you write a story, there has to be friends so they can branch off and have their own stories. And so that's sort of how the series sort of took off. And I enjoyed it because the first book, like I said, my hero has Asperger's. The second book, most of my heroines tend to be Black women who are, career oriented, driven. Their careers are what they're going for, and love is an inconvenience. But because of who my heroine was in the first book, and the fact that she had been in the foster care system and her friend was her foster sister, it was a different kind of heroine for me to write. And so writing that for the second book sort of stretched me because it required me to understand her in a way that I wouldn't ordinarily, because it's not the type of heroine I usually write, and I really enjoyed that. And so that was in Along Came Love. And then the third book in the series, I tackled amnesia, which people say, oh, I hate amnesia stories. But I was interested in that angle, because my daughter actually had a traumatic brain injury. And we noticed sort of before her surgery and after her surgery, just such a change in her personality. And, again, as writers, things happen and you might like sort of lock them away in a little box and then later think about them. But I thought about sort of memories or the things that make us who we are. If we lost our memories, are we the same person? And then what happens when we get them back? And so that sort of played into the third book, which was Love Will Always Remember. So yeah, that's the Shades of Love series. I really enjoyed writing it. And again, I hadn't planned on writing single titles so early in my career, but now I can't imagine doing anything else. So much room to explore lots of different ideas and journeys. And then as we talked about earlier with whether or not as writers we can make people do things, I think what we do in our stories is we give them a full world and we give them different points of views and different experiences, and they learn as they read the story. We don't have to teach them anything. We're just saying, this is the world that we're writing about. And I think our readers learn from inhabiting our world.
Thank you. I know Jelly bought the free books, and I hope they will translate all free books soon, because I think readers have to read those. Okay. It's some pressure. It's kind of pressure on Jelly. Okay, thank you very much. And now Brenda with you. Brenda, Okay. Yes, my accent, I have a French accent, you know, so it's not very easy. Okay, so now with Brenda, you have been translated for a long time with by Harlequin, and they have translated the first book of your Granger series, and which the book, the novel, has been produced by Passion Flix. But they never translated the rest of the series, and I would love to see them translate the rest. So can you tell me about the series?
Brother's Honor, A Man's Promise, and oh gosh, A Lover's Vow. That they are a 3-book series. Really, the 4th book was written after I signed on because my readers wanted the dad story. So I wrote it under my own company, not Harlequin, and it's Captivated by Love. But the Grangers, oh gosh, that was my first, what I consider my first Mirror book. They came out under Mirror. So Harlequin wanted something different from me. And over the years, I had been writing continuities for Harlequin. And a continuity is basically one story that covers so many books. And for Harlequin, they had each author gave her own book, like the Texas Cattleman Club or whatever. So I had been participating in that. I participated in a lot of other continuities, but I decided instead of writing, I'm gonna write 3 different books about 3 brothers, but there was going to be a common thread through each story. And the thread was who killed their mother, for which their father was in jail serving time for a crime he didn't commit. And of course, I knew I was going to end the mystery on the 3rd book. And that's what I did. But I had to keep it going where you would keep interested in everything. So I, didn't just dwell on who killed the mother. The first book was about basically who was trying to sabotage the company. The second book was who was trying to kill the second son. Was it connected to anything? And then the 3rd book, of course, was the revealing of everything. So I had fun, and the book is was in French. So, a lot of my readers were able to read all 3 of them. So we filmed book 1. We were supposed to film book 2 in 2020, book 3 in 2021. So now we're a year behind because of the pandemic. But I've been told by Tosca Musk, the CEO, that we will be filming A Man's Promise in November. So we are hoping that we will film the 3rd book right after that. So they'll have all 3. And I'm hoping that they will even pick up the 4th one.
I hope too, because it's about their dad.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies. I was very happy to have you with me tonight. I hope my accent was good enough for you.
It was.
Beautiful.
You have a beautiful accent.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brenda, because I love you. And I know
love you too.
Thank you. And I know you are an inspiration for a lot of writers. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. So I will tell you bye, and I hope maybe next time in France directly. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye, ladies.
Bye. Nice to meet you all. Bye.